Hello and welcome to episode 317 of Sutton and Back Family Style. I'm Jason.
I'm Bill, and Jason and I were talking offline for the last 20 minutes about the NBA playoffs, and they're fun.
Yeah.
They're fun. It's interesting. The Lakers are just LeBron driven. I mean, he's the engine. It's not, soup to nuts, top to bottom. It's not that strong of a roster, but it's driven by two players, and then the support players are playing well and fitting in and adjusting. But LeBron is very, very driven, which I expected when the playoffs started.
Yeah.
I thought if they got in, they'd be a tough out.
And you have Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, Anthony Davis, where, every other game it's a different player. And,
Yeah.
some nights he looks like, the guy he was in New Orleans, where it's like, this is the next best player in the NBA. And other nights he looks like just a giant disappointment.
But he stayed healthy so far.
So far, yeah.
So far is the operative word.
And I know
that series is very interesting. And if I had to call it right now, I'm going to take the Lakers coming out of that series.
Yeah, well, I would say one of the big things the Lakers have that is surprising considering where they started the season is, between Hachimura and Rui Hachimura, D'Angelo Russell, Austin Reeves, Lonnie Walker played a big game last night, Schroeder. They always have at least one. They have enough of those guys for one of them to be good. Vanderbilt, you're gonna get from LeBron, and presumably what you're gonna get from Davis, although that's a little shaky. But you have more of those other guys that like D'Angelo Russell played really well last night, and when he looks 8 of 13, 5 of 8 from 3, like when he looks good, that's the guy that keeps getting traded because people are like, maybe.
And then you got to give some credit to Darwin Ham.
Yeah.
He's done a nice job bringing these guys together, bringing them back from where they were in the beginning of the year. It's been impressive.
Yeah. And if you're Golden State, again, you look at them over the last, granted they just won a championship. They're on their way to potentially their 5th. So it's hard to knock them in any way, shape, or form. And they've been to like 7 finals. So kudos to that organization. And you still got guys like Looney. But Moody, Kuminga, and Wiseman were supposed to be, probably your 4th starter, your 5th starter, and one of your first 3 guys off the bench at this point, right?
Right.
Wiseman's gone. Moody looks almost unplayable. And then, Kuminga flashes at times, but you'd figure at this point one of those guys would have been a better contributor than he is now.
Yeah, especially after the year Kuminga had last year.
Yeah, like you kept thinking like, okay, well now they're on their way. This is what we've been waiting for. And then,
Yep.
And then like I said, you might get nothing out of any of those 3, which is crazy.
Yeah, and Wiseman looks like a total miss.
Yeah, he does. Would you want to stay out west?
Let's stay out west. Let's talk. I mean, you've been singing Denver's praises all year.
Yeah.
They kind of remind me of the Spurs.
They do.
They're good, but they're not flashy. All they do is win.
And for as many, unless you love watching great passes and great cutters, like their best player, Jokic, is not like a human highlight reel. He's just like Tim Duncan.
He's exactly like Tim Duncan.
He's not as good on defense, but a far better passer. So you get that on both sides. But it's up and unders. It's mid-range jump shots, wide open threes, and then even though he's in much better shape than he was when he first came in the league, like he doesn't look exciting, I guess, right?
Right, he doesn't. But all he does is win.
Yeah. And again, if
they're up 2-1, and I think if they take a game in Phoenix,
which
that's 3-1.
Yeah,
that's over.
Yeah. Because again, you got what everybody said they needed, which was 70 points combined between Booker and KD, and then they won, 121, 114. It was slightly closer than that down the stretch. Like you felt like Denver was a couple made shots, obviously in a game, but it more so. And then the big story coming out was DeAndre Ayton gets pulled, pouts on the bench, and then walks out of the facility without talking to anybody. And you're already down Chris Paul. It's a really rough thing to obviously be down him as well. So,
well, I said it 5 years ago. That was not the pick. The pick was Luka, and they didn't make the pick.
No.
Can you imagine that team with Luka?
Yeah, and I mean at the time, Atlanta took all the crap for not taking Luka. Where Phoenix, they were like, well, look, you got Booker, you've got Chris Paul. Now you're gonna add this, big man that can, stretch the floor, play defense, be a rim protector. He was College Player of the Year. Like, you could make that argument more for them at the time. Now, obviously, in hindsight, not at all. But at the time, like, at least there was some argument, unlike the Trae Young pick.
Yep.
Where do you want to go in the East first, Ed? Do you want to talk Heat culture, or do you want to talk Celtics?
Oh, I got to talk Heat culture.
Okay.
And I'm going to the game Monday night. I'm excited. Jimmy Butler is rapidly becoming one of my all-time favorite players.
Wow.
All he does is, he just elevates his game in a way that I don't want to say like Michael Jordan, but I'm going to say like Michael Jordan. He just is able to do things, and I just don't see how he's able to do it.
No, there is very much it's just a force of will when you watch him in these games, right?
Yes, exactly.
Like, it's just, I'm going to do this, and you can't stop me, because you're watching, they're playing good defense on him half the time, too, and he just ups it to another level, and it's really crazy.
It is absolutely crazy. So I am fired up to go see them tomorrow night.
And then
I'm really excited about it.
And then as we talked a little bit offline, people like to say the words as a joke, Heat culture, but there is a Heat culture, and it's palatable, and it's clear.
It's very clear. Very clear. To be in Miami, you got to fit in, and you got to fit into it is all about team in Miami. And I look at Jimmy Butler before he went to Miami, and in Miami, he just found the perfect place, the perfect coach, the perfect GM, the perfect scenario. And even his press conferences are outstanding. His press conferences are like Pat Riley writes his answers for him.
Yeah. And the Heat,
he's talking the talk.
And the Heat have, 6 or 7 undrafted players on their roster?
At least 4.
Yeah, that contribute. They
contribute.
Again, it's not you have Jimmy Butler, and then you just have everybody else. I get Bam Adebayo, but it's not stars. And then I know people like to point out when you watch, the talking head shows, especially the former athletes, the average fan doesn't understand coaching. But I feel like when I watch a Miami Heat game, I'm witnessing coaching.
I absolutely agree with you, 100%.
I see
100%.
Yeah, I see the adjustments. The people are like, well, they weren't making adjustments. And I'm like, well, I can't say that there wasn't things drawn up on the chalkboard in the locker room at halftime. But I feel like when I watch the Heat play, I can see what I see as an issue, and that it's automatically changed, it's...
Yeah, and when they come out of a timeout and run an inbounds play, you say, wow, that was a good play.
Yeah. And like you said, Jimmy Butler buying in and being the leader of that team, and, typically not being the kind of guy that seems like a fall-in-line sort of player, but he is. And
then look at, you're missing Tyler Hero and Victor Oladipo.
Yeah.
2 people that played significant minutes till they got hurt. And, that's amazing that you could drop. So now, instead of playing your top 7, now you're having to play your top 5, and then your 8, 9, 10, 11.
Yeah.
And you're winning. And that's impressive. That's coaching. That's culture. That's an organization. Everybody believing, nobody bitching, nobody moaning. Everybody coming in. I just love it.
Yeah. And a player that plays a little bit like him on the other side had a bad game in Jalen Brunson. But Jalen Brunson seems to have a little bit of that force of will, step up in the moment. I want to be the best player out there, even if I'm not considered the best player. But, he had a rough game in Game 3. And then Julius Randle has not looked good in a while.
No, Julius Randle's not looked good at all. And Barrett comes and goes.
Yeah. Barrett could play on the AD, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde team of
Yeah.
who's showing up tonight. Because one guy is phenomenal and the other guy is, oh, it's kind of sad. But yeah, I mean, and Butler is supposedly playing on an injured ankle, which is, another kudos to him.
Well, that was smart sitting him in game 2.
Yeah, it was.
Because now you gave him 5 days to come back. That was really, really smart.
And again, that's the Heat. That's what they do.
That's what they do.
They are these smart. We're not, the Patriots of the NBA and and you go back to like you said, the Spurs. Like, we're not going to beat ourselves. We're going to play our system. We're going to play smart. We're going to play hard, and then we'll see what happens, right?
Right.
And then in the other series in the East, after an incredible game 1, Harden looks like playoff Harden again. And
yeah, he does.
He's shooting 17% over the last 2 games.
And you know what? Once it starts getting that ingrained into your head,
yeah,
your body follows.
Yeah, it does. And Embiid looks like it might be another, disappointment. I mean, he got his MVP finally.
Yeah.
A lot of talking to get there, but he got it. But, it does feel like when you watch those games, when the Celtics are playing their best basketball, they are the better team, right?
Yeah, except the Celtics seem to take a game off or a quarter off here and everything else, and it gets them in trouble.
Yeah, because they're playing. I mean, you're up 2-1 right now. You've handily won the last 2 games. You're in Philly. This is the step on your throat. We're the best team in the East. Let's go game. And I wouldn't want to touch this game with a 10-foot pole betting wise, but I could very easily see Philadelphia winning by like 16 today. As weird as that is for them, and it shouldn't be that close, but I could see that happening.
I could see it 16 points either way.
Yeah.
It's going to be one of those games.
Because Celtics, I mean, there's when you watch them in interviews and even on the court, like there's still some hard feelings, Jalen Brown stuff going on, right?
Yeah.
And on some level, like, be a professional, this is your chance, you can get your chip, make more money, all that stuff. But, with the way he's been dangled about and talked about in that organization over the last 4 years, it's easy to see why he's a little bit upset.
Yeah, I would say.
Because even in this year's trade deadline, it was his name not being denied right away in talks for KD. And on the one hand, you could be like, well, hey, you're being talked as the centerpiece in a KD trade. You should be, you should be happy about it. But I can see where he's a little bit upset about it.
Well, I got to tell you, I would love to see a Celtics-Miami matchup.
Which, I mean, the odds are that's what we're going to get, right?
I'm hoping, but that's must-see TV.
Yeah.
And what's even better for me is next Saturday we fly to the West Coast.
Yeah.
And I could be watching these games at 5:30.
It's weird. They had
food, sit in front of TV and enjoy them.
Yeah, there was a big debate about which is the best time zone for sports. I like the West Coast for sports. They came up Central Mountain Time was the best, which is sort of the, down the middle. But I like 9 a.m. football on Sundays.
I don't mind it either because you can watch 8 hours of football and it's only 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
That's the best.
You make a little breakfast buffet, watch some football. Yeah. Maybe later, in the second round of games, you get some pizza and wings. You're still, like you said, you still got time at the end of the day. It's nice.
Well, I'm going to enjoy that time zone next week for 2 weeks. That's for sure.
Yes. And then I guess the other thing I've noticed is, and do you think this is an issue for the NBA, is I feel like more than maybe any of the other sports, and I guess hockey would probably be in this category too, but the product I'm watching in the playoffs feels like a different product than what I watch in the regular season to just a giant degree,
Yeah, because, 82 games, not every game is meaningful.
Yeah.
Playoffs, every game is meaningful. And that happens in every sport. But I agree with you that the NBA and the NHL seem to ratchet it up just a little bit more. And you can definitely tell there's a perceptible difference.
And, with the play-in now, and then you look at both Miami and the Lakers, who have a chance to be in the conference finals, neither team seemed to really give a shit about the regular season.
No, as long as they knew they were going to be in the playoffs.
Yeah.
I agree.
And they didn't.
They could take care. And same with Golden State, really.
Yeah, I mean, two of those three teams are in the play-in, and I know Denver's the one seed in the West, and they look pretty good right now. But I mean, Milwaukee was out in the first round in 5 games, so it's like, again, maybe it's not an issue. I just feel like if I was seeing closer to this, like with the NFL, and I know the NFL owners are doing everything they can every day to ruin this. But every game feels important. And I know it's 17 games now as opposed to 82, which is just vastly different. And you're playing a lot of division games and conference games, so that each individual game really means a lot. But I feel like they need to find some way to ratchet up to make the gap smaller. Like, you expect a bump in playoffs, but
Yeah. Well, I get a kudos shout out to the NBA because they're actually going to move the games up a half an hour.
Yeah, which I like.
Instead of starting at 9, they're going to start at 8:30, which is 5:30 as opposed to 6 on the West Coast. I don't think that's not that big of a deal on the West Coast. I don't think so. It's a huge difference on the East Coast.
Yeah, which I think matters a lot.
And then we've seen like in baseball, the Pirates start at 6:30, and with the game being 2.5 hours, that means the game's over by 9. And so more kids can go, more people can enjoy it, and you're not sitting there So some of these nuances with time and the era in which we live are really, really important, and it shouldn't be overlooked.
No, definitely not. So I guess we both feel like we're going to get, our prediction right now would be Nuggets, Lakers, and then Heat, Celtics.
I think so. I just think we were talking offline, we both came to the conclusion that the Nuggets are a modern day version of the Spurs. That they're not flashy, that they don't have a superstar. They're not going to be on television a lot because they're not superstar driven, and all they do is win.
Yeah.
And they don't win in a flashy way. They win in a very methodical, disciplined, skillful way, just like the Tim Duncan Spurs.
And the other thing,
not that there's anything wrong with it, but I guess people don't appreciate it, and that's kind of why, as much as I love the Suns, if Denver gets to the finals and Denver would win, I think it's a great story, and I think I would want to see what the ratings were to see if people buy into good basketball or if they just want to watch superstars.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Jokic should be. I mean, he's a 2-time MVP. I have noticed, and granted, it's a lot of people like Perkins, who I tweeted the other day he should skip to another network because he seems built more in that mold than the, journalism mode.
Yeah.
He feels like a giant Skip Bayless, which is quite annoying, but he feels like one of those players that doesn't like foreigners.
Yeah.
He feels so anti-Jokic, and there's a couple other those ex-players that it's like they're mad at him for being from another. I don't know what it is. It's weird, but yeah. All right. Well, should we have a Pirate minute? Should we stick with our baseball?
Yeah, we have a Pirate minute. The Pirates have now lost 6 in a row, but it was pointed out to me, the glass half empty, glass half full.
Yeah.
So despite losing 6 games in a row, the Pirates are still in first place by a game and a half.
Yeah, which is great.
But they don't look very good right now at all. The pitching's not there, the hitting's not there, and the defense isn't there. So it's not like, when they were winning, all 3 of those things were working.
Yeah.
Now none of them are working. Instead of 2 out of 3 or 1 out of nothing is working.
And
so we'll have to see how it goes.
And now, obviously the Braves have 23 wins, the Mets have 17, Marlins 16, Phillies 16. So that a lot more teams are closer to the Pirates' win total right now too. So now they look less like a here we come and more of a is this what we? But again, hopefully they rally and end up I feel like if you're a Pirate fan, as long as they're in contention for a wild card spot at the end of the year, this would be a nice build year, right?
Yep.
Which I know isn't. great, but
I mean, my prediction beginning of the year was 75 and 77.
okay.
So we'll see. And so 2 weeks ago that looked low. Now it might look high. So we have to see. But another good thing, Jace, I'm so blessed that I get to do these things. So I got my hookup. Mom and I are going to go to the Angels game. We're going to see the Angels and the Twins on the West Coast on Friday night. And I just love going to an Angels game and watching Mike Trout and Ohtani.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they're my second favorite team, but they've always been. I've always loved it. Dan was almost named Nolan Ryan, so I've always loved the Angels.
Yeah.
So I don't understand the Angels, but I've always loved the Angels.
No, because as we talked about in the past, it's a team that, spends money and is trying, and they just keep failing. So
Yeah.
It's very, very odd.
Yeah. Very odd. Watch a special today on the projected number one pick in the NHL, Bedard.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, I was, not being a great hockey fan, I was blown away by this guy. I mean, he was ridiculous. And they had film of him when he was like growing up, like 4 or 5 years old, playing hockey in the house because he's from Vancouver.
Oh, yeah.
You don't have a lot of rinks because it rains all the time. Man, I'm telling you, he was spectacular. Tiger Woods-esque at age 5. And, I mean, his favorite player was Sidney Crosby. He looks really, really good. And whatever team gets him, that's a game. That is a absolute game changer.
Just like Connor McDavid before him.
Yeah, so you got the NBA draft and the NHL draft with generational players, projected generational players as the number one pick. And so we've had like 5 years in a row in the NBA where, I don't know who I would take number one, but if you get one of the first 3 or 4, you're in good shape. This year it looks like there's one and there's everybody else.
Yeah. And I feel like, as much as I like Scoot Henderson and the kid out of Alabama, like, Wembanyama is, the make or break of this draft class. Because we've never seen 7'5".
We've never seen anybody that size with those skills.
Yeah. And again, I'm hoping he ends up in Orlando, just because, I've been to a lot of Orlando Magic games.
That would be awesome. And I would be starting to go to some games in Orlando.
Yeah, because that would be fun. And the Birds are chiming in today, it seems like. They've got a lot to say.
Yes, they are.
Little NFL? Because that's the bread and butter.
Yeah, I wanted to shout out to, Bronny James going to USC, which is in line with what Jason and I talked about for the last year, that LA is an NIL haven for college players.
Yeah.
So let's see what happens with USC basketball, because we know it's going to happen with USC football.
Well, again, it's also one of those cities where, you've got Hollywood, you've got tech companies, you've got business. Like, it's, as much as people want to shy away from the taxes, like, you also have access to so many other people,
You got weather, you got the beach.
Yeah.
You got everything, and you got boosters with money. So what more could you want?
I can't imagine much more, yeah.
No. So football, Lamar signed his contract.
He did.
So now Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow are going to get a big raise.
Yeah. I feel much more comfortable about the Burrow raise because I feel like I know what Burrow is. I'm still waiting to see what Herbert is. If I'm obviously all the skills in the world, but they just haven't had much luck.
If I couldn't have Mahomes, I'd want Burrow.
Yeah, I would too.
That's where I am. That's my 1-2. It's not Josh Allen. It's not Lamar. Those are my 1-2.
Yeah, I like him a lot. Until Caleb Williams comes in the NBA or NFL.
Yeah.
Then maybe he's number
2. And
two.
I want to see, and I love Herbert. Their draft looked okay, and they picked up some better players. So we'll see what happens. But he's a notch below. There's 1 and 2 for me.
Yeah.
And Aaron Rodgers isn't in my top 5, but he'll make a sizable difference at the Jets because he's not going to be as dependent on him as it was before.
Yeah. And this is a silly thing that he talked about, but did you see Lamar's press conference?
Mm-hmm.
The one thing that's disturbing as a Steeler fan, and I guess the rest of the NFL should be disturbed about, depending on what you think of the Raven organization and Lamar Jackson, but Lamar seemed really happy to be back in Baltimore for this long-term contract, and he and Jim Harbaugh looked like father son, coach player. Like they looked like they were having fun together. Like they're glad this is over with, and but it doesn't feel like as we talked about DeAndre Ayton and
no
some
animosity.
No animosity. It seems like they're just really excited. And granted, like people have talked about, Rashad Bateman is coming off an injury again. Odell Beckham hasn't played football in a year and is coming off back-to-back injuries. And then you drafted Zay Jones, who's a very nice player, but and you still have Mark Andrews, but maybe this isn't this feast of weapons for Lamar to throw to. That people there's a lot of caveats with all their skill position players.
Yeah. But it's better groceries than he's had.
Yeah. But again, like I didn't expect him. He and Harbaugh just seemed so happy and chummy that it was just sort of like, odd that it didn't get done sooner because I think this deal was pretty close to whatever it was. But
Yeah, I just think that they, the Ravens came to the conclusion. The right conclusion was, we'll go out and let him get a deal, and we'll match it, and that will set the market. So it's not us setting the market; it's the market setting the market.
Yeah,
and that's what they did. And it came down to exactly what we said it was going to come down to: 75% guaranteed money, not 100%.
Yeah. And I don't know if the Bengals are this forward thinking, or the Chargers, but you look at Patrick Mahomes' 10-year deal, and that just looks like the biggest deal in the NFL. Right?
Yeah.
Because he's not going to, the way it's working out, I'm sure they'll find ways to bump him up and give him Moses and make sure he's taken care of the entire time, but his deal is pretty crazy on paper now.
Yeah, but, and the Bengals and the Chargers are not known as very well-run organizations. So
no, they have not been at all.
But, if you don't, you'd have a major revolt if you didn't do the right thing by Joe Burrow. He's everything you want in a quarterback. He's cocky, he's arrogant, and he's good.
Yeah, and he's beloved in the city. And you've got a couple great running mates. Yeah.
It's going to be, the NFL is going to be really interesting this year. I'm already excited about it.
Yeah, I can't wait. I'm excited that it's moving to YouTube from DirecTV, which hopefully gives more people access and less, gross access with giant satellite dishes on the side of your house. And then, yeah. And again, like we talked about, it's going to be a really weird season. We'll eventually preview as the summer moves along, but it's, and again, like I said, I think, despite some, caveats here and there, we're excited about the Steelers season too. So
we are. And listen, everybody, here's my business moment. Since it's moving to YouTube, YouTube's got a deal right now that you get $100 off if you have YouTube TV and you add Sunday Ticket to it. So don't wait, because I think the deal runs out in June.
It does, I think.
So jump on it and get it, because I've had Sunday Ticket for years, and it's one of my favorite things. Because if I'm watching, I can watch any game, and I love football, period, to watch. And, it's my chance to watch Justin Herbert, So it's great. And I don't have to worry about watching a West Coast game starting at 10:30 at night like I do with baseball.
Yeah.
So that's my word to the wise. Jump on it and get it quick.
Well, as we're talking business and Sunday Ticket, and all the different rumblings of different offerings, do you think would you ever offer an a la carte Sunday package where I could pay $9.99 or $14.99 for whatever game I wanted week to week? Or do you think you really want people in, you want people in, you obviously want people to subscribe for the year to YouTube TV.
Let me see so what's the deal? It's like $3.69, right? And
right.
You get it for $2.69?
Plus the $79 a month for your YouTube TV subscription.
Okay, so let's divide that out. So $2.69 divided by 17 weeks is what?
$2.69 divided by 17.
It's less than $20 a week.
Right.
So I would let you pay a la carte. I would let you buy weekly for like $22.50 to $25, something like that. Because it's just, I always compare it to a pizza.
Yeah.
If you buy the whole pizza, it's cheap. If you buy the whole pizza my way, it's cheaper than paying for a slice. But with a slice, you get as much as you want with what you want.
Yeah.
So I always think there's a premium for that. So yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong.
Yeah.
And I would have a free preview week to start it off, and then I'd say, okay, and you can buy next week for $25, or you can subscribe now and get it for this. So, yeah, I mean, we'll see how their business model is.
Yeah, because like I said, I understand you want that $80 a month subscription no matter what, and you want the full commitment. But, if I'm a local Pittsburgh person and I live in Pittsburgh, I get to watch my Steelers every week. 2 weeks in November, I'm on the West Coast for whatever reason. And I can buy the Steeler game a la carte, $12.99, $11.99, or $9.99, whatever, And I get just that game for just that broadcast on YouTube. Like a little mini pay-per-view.
Yeah.
I would enjoy, like I said, and obviously it's whatever the number is going to be a much better deal, like you said, to get the value meal as opposed to buying the individual pieces. But just offering individual pieces from time to time, I think would be unique. And maybe it'll come to pass. Who knows?
I think it's good. Wow. So, entertainment, what do you got?
We watched The Pope's Exorcist, the Russell Crowe Exorcist-like movie, where he's based on a real character, believe it or not. And they show him at the end, and we Googled him a little bit to do a little bit of research. And he was the exorcist of the Pope, is the position. But it's a really well done exorcism movie, The effects hold up obviously better than the 1972 or 77 version of The Exorcist, but I would say it might be it's definitely top 2 or 3 best Exorcist movies I've seen post-Exorcist. How's that?
Okay. What about Russell Crowe? Since he's kind of fallen from grace, how was he?
I think he's good in this one. I mean, he's doing an Italian accent and speaking Italian for part of it, but I think he pulls it off. And like I said, they offer a lot of lore, and it gets a little deeper into why the possession is taking where it is, and what's the motivation behind the possession, which they don't usually get to in these movies as much. It's still you have to figure out the name of the demon, but there ends up being a lot more to that aspect of it.
What's the time period for it, Jay?
The 80s.
Okay.
So it takes place in a small town outside of Spain, and it's either there or the Vatican, so it feels mostly timeless, because you're not fighting demons with cell phones and guns, so,
Yeah,
you're at the Vatican for part of it, and then you're in this tiny, old Spanish abbey, and, so outside of what they're dressed as, and I think the little girl has a Walkman, but other than that, it's got sort of a timeless feel to it for the most part.
Okay.
Yeah. And I've seen some complaints that they feel like Russell Crowe tells too many little dumb jokes. But having done research about the actual Pope's Exorcist the story is based on, his profile picture was him with his tongue out making a silly Miley Cyrus face back in the 80s. So apparently this guy was a big just goofball joker. So,
Okay.
A lot of corny dad jokes and one-liners. That was sort of part of his thing, so...
Well, I'm going to recommend The Night Agent on Netflix.
Okay.
And I don't want to give much away, but the first episode it just has so much action and gives you a great cliffhanger.
Okay.
It's pretty amazing. So I just think it's definitely worth it. It's just so well done. I don't know. It reminded me of 24 in that I didn't want to stop watching last night, but it was late and I had to. It draws you in quickly. The acting is really good. The plot line is really good. It's just fun. So I would definitely recommend that one.
And if you're looking for older TV, I can't recommend every season, but the first season of 24 is a very underrated season of television.
Absolutely.
Because I think it was Fox and Kiefer Sutherland, and it got goofy, and crazy, but the first season
The first year was outstanding.
was outstanding television. It's one of those ones where you watch it and it's episode to episode. You can't wait to watch the next episode.
Yeah.
And often don't if you can stream it. So just throw that out there for people.
Definitely bingeable.
Yeah. I don't think I had any food moments, sadly.
Sadly, I didn't have to come back from Pittsburgh. I didn't have a food moment either. So I'll have some food moments from the West Coast next week. Well, for the show, for 2 shows from now, I will. Well, actually, next Sunday, I'll already have had a food moment. So, yeah, we'll have some good food moments from the West Coast.
Well, I will also be on the West Coast in 10 days myself.
Where are you going to be?
San Francisco.
Nice.
Yeah. Just for like 5 or 6 days. But, I'll have some San Francisco food moments, which is exciting.
And, yeah, I got some good places for you to go.
Yeah.
There's some good pizza in There's some good pizza in San Fran.
There is. And good Chinese food. There's a lot of good stuff. Good
Yeah.
city. Despite the taxi priciness part. But,
Yeah.
what can you do? So next week we should have a pretty good understanding of who's going to be playing for, a trip to the finals.
And when is the lottery, Jake?
Is it? I think it's during
The next round?
the next round. I think it's early in the next round is when they do the lottery.
Yep.
And it doesn't seem like there's any drama. You're not trading that first overall pick. You're taking Wembanyama, no matter who you are and who's on your team. So it's really just a matter of who gets him.
And I'm rooting for the Spurs and the Magic to get the pick.
Yeah. And then I'm rooting this offseason for a Paul George, Kawhi, Chris Paul, Zion Williamson super team. And we'll try to find 4 or 5 more people that can't play a full season and just keep that team together and see if they can cobble together enough 2 of those players at any given point to put a competitive team on the court.
I wouldn't put that past Stephen Ballmer. He's got a new building he'll be opening up in L.A., and I've heard phenomenal things about the new building, so.
Yeah. I think the sad thing about the Kawhi and the Chris Paul, both those injuries just feel like they're older players with, nagging injuries that are just never going away. Like Kawhi's knee.
You're breaking down.
Yeah. Kawhi's knee, Clippers did everything they could all year long to make sure he was healthy for the playoffs, and he lasted a game and a half. And it wasn't anything dramatic, like he didn't get rolled over by a 300-pound center. Like it just doesn't work anymore.
And so all the more kudos to LeBron.
Yeah.
For playing 20-plus years at the level he's played at.
Because even Kareem is the only one close, and Kareem wasn't this at 38 that LeBron is at 38.
No.
Kareem was still a very good player that could put up 20 points a game, but it was a different kind of 20 points. It was.
Yeah. And when Michael Jordan came back after the layoff, he was good, but he wasn't Michael Jordan anymore.
No.
But if he would have kept playing through, maybe he would have even been more incredible than he was.
Yeah.
So on that thought, we'll leave you. Enjoy great F1 event out of Miami today. Hockey playoffs, NBA playoffs. My last comment is that winning is so mental. You have to believe you can win. When you don't believe you can win, or when you are surprised that you win, you usually don't win much. So kudos to the University of Oklahoma for extending their women's softball team 40 games in a row, raising their number to, I think, 49-1 for their record. But they were getting dumb. They were losing to Oklahoma State yesterday, 2-0 in the last inning. And the first batter got on in the last inning. And I looked at my wife, Sharon, and said, game over. And they lost 4-2.
Yeah.
And they hadn't done anything for 6 innings. It's just the belief that you can win, or the belief that something bad is going to happen and you're going to lose.
Yeah.
And being an Oklahoma State fan, I am just so used to it. I actually turned it off at 3-2 because I knew that wasn't going to be it. I knew they were going to lose, and I was done.
Yeah.
And the beautiful thing about sport is on any given day, right? Except when Oklahoma plays Oklahoma State, which saddens me.
It's very sad.
So, all right, everybody, have a good one.